Perfect. Now let's move on to the next phase, which is the star of the day, BOPF integration with CDS for DML, data manipulation language. What if I want to create transactional apps completely which can do create, update, and delete for you? How can you achieve that? So let's take a use case once again for that. Before we get into it, let's look at the evolution of our three-tier architecture over a period of time. What is that people need these days? What is that people expect these days, coming out the monolithic approach of developing Fiori app to what is that they're looking for these days? So let me first show you that. So in the older world, what we used to have is we used to have a user. In fact, we have the user today as well. So let me just make it, though he looks like a happy user, but he's not that happy with SAP GUI based apps. And then you have your user connected to your SAP GUI tool. Okay, SAP GUI tool. And then you have really something called an ABAP backend. And then you have your conventional typical RDBMS systems, which are running on top of hard disk very slow. So these are non-HANA database, typical old architecture, guys, which you have. What are all the challenges of these type of application? Can anybody tell me? The first biggest challenge of these applications are speed. Performance was a big challenge. Second problem was user experience was not that great. Though we have WebDyn Pro and BSP, still we lag a lot of functionality. Just to take a small example, in WebDyn Pro, you cannot handle browser back button. So you see this browser back button on the top? This won't work in WebDyn Pro. So if I go inside and if I use the browser back button, it takes me back to the previous screen. So these things doesn't work with WebDyn Pro. User experience was a big problem. And with the emergence and evolution of devices, mobile device and tablets and smartwatches, it was a need to bring in a new UI technology which can work for all the devices, which is open standard, which supports all the majority of the things and can change the way people look at the apps. Okay, so this is what was there. But what was so better? What was so good about these applications? So there are a lot of assets, like I was explaining you, assets like logical unit of work, assets like workflows, assets like BOPF, BAPIs, CTS, transport mechanism, and one we saw authorization, right? These are all the assets of your ABAP system, which are there in the system, which people are used to using it. A very good transaction control, very good end-to-end transaction control, you have it. However, there are disadvantages, but this was the advantage of this application. Okay, now then again, so this is what was happening in the conventional world by far. In the older world, we have these advantages which we are using, but there are a couple of disadvantages with this approach. The first disadvantage is user experience. User experience in mobile device as well as tablets and smart devices was not that great. Okay, so the first disadvantage is with respect to user. So what was not that good is user experience was not that good. This was the first UX experience was a bad, I would mark it as a bad point. So let me just use it in red color so that you understand what was not that great. So user experiences was the problem. The second biggest problem is server stickiness. What is server stickiness? Who will tell me? What is server stickiness? Anybody? What is server stickiness? It means when you connect using SAP GUI system to the ABAP server, inside of ABAP server, there is a session which is started. I hope you all have worked with session memory and ABAP memory and SAP memory. Do you all know set get parameters in ABAP programming? If not, please attend my basic ABAP training. This is what I expect all of you to know. So in ABAP, we have something called a session, which is managed. Whenever you connect to ABAP system, there's a session which is created in ABAP system. So that's server stickiness. So now what happens? Have you observed timeout in SAP systems? Anybody? Have you observed timeout in SAP GUI screens? Right? So what is that? Why it is? Because there is a session created for the SAP GUI session inside your ABAP system, which has certain dialog timeout time, so that resources can be made free. Correct? So this was a disadvantage. This is called server stickiness, that there is a certain timeout. You have to be bound to the session in the server, which is created for you when you connect to the server. So that's a disadvantage again, because let's say I went for coffee, I came back, my work is gone, right? Second disadvantage, collaboration. You can't do collaboration. Why? Why you can't collaborate? Because, for example, you are starting the transaction, your another developer or another person have to access the same thing on mobile device, or would be able to access the information. But for security reasons, the other user, will the other user have access to your session? What we used to do in ABAP, if I want to share the data of my session, anybody? ABAP experts, guys, come on, I'm asking basic ABAP questions. You should answer. What we used to do, if another session has to access the same data which is running in one session, what do you used to use? Which concept? No, import export is only for current session data, current user session data to export out to SAP memory. Perfect answer, Tara. It's SAP memory set get parameters we used to use, so that other person can access the session data of another user. So this is what we used to use. So for security reasons, the data, also the set get parameter used to use for a very small set of data, not for big large amount of data. So collaboration was missing. Two users or multiple users can't collaborate. Third disadvantage, device switch. Fourth disadvantage, device switch means, have you ever tried using a mobile, starting the application in mobile, create sales order, and you're creating a sales order, and then you start driving towards office, and then when you reach office, you open your desktop in office, and then you complete your sales order which you left halfway through in the mobile device. That's your device switch capability. Are you thinking the new innovation, guys? Where are we going towards? These things nobody will teach you, because these things are cutting edge things. So device switch was also not possible with these kind of applications, monolithic applications. And then server stickiness also as a disadvantage, collaboration disadvantage. You also have device switches, and performance, of course, because all the data was kept in not in memory, it was kept in hard disk. And then you have separate system for OLAP, OLAP, and OLTP, right? So one system where you create sales order and then wait for 2 days for nightly builds, where data gets replicated to a replication server, BW server, where you then do a dashboard and see your output. So these were the disadvantages of old monolithic SAP GUI classical transactional app applications, which include SAP GUI, WebDyn Pro, BSP. What has happened with Fiori? Some of these disadvantages went off with the ABAP on HANA. What did we do? First of all, we replaced the database with HANA DB. What is HANA database does? Anybody? What is it capable of doing? Anybody? What is it capable of doing? Anyone? I taught all of these in the training session. What is HANA is capable? What is so beauty? Yes, code to data paradigm. That's first advantage. Second advantage, anybody who will tell me what is the second advantage of SAP HANA database? So one is code to data paradigm. Second is, yes, it's an in-memory database. Data is kept in the memory. Massive parallelization, right? Column store. Column store made it possible to run both OLTP and OLAP system in a single database system, which made it real time. So real-time analytics have come up when you go to the SAP HANA database. So this is the first advantage of using SAP HANA. So we've got this one thing. Now, second advantage is multiple users. How can they access same data? Collaboration. Okay. That, let's imagine there are 10,000 users who are running the application, your application on mobile device. Your SAP GUI will crash in such cases, because 10,000 session needs to be opened in ABAP server, right? Your ABAP server cannot bend this much of load. So collaborative apps needs high number of availability, high number of users coming together and connecting to server, which needs heavy ABAP server resource, which is not scalable also for a long run. That's the reason we went with OData architecture, where there is no server stickiness anymore. In the OData architecture, what exactly happens is you don't have a stickiness on the server. And what typically happens, it's a REST based protocol. The session is not persisted. Okay, the state is the session is not persisted. It's a REST protocol using OData. The moment your OData call comes, a session is created, it does its job, sends the response back, and there is again resources are free. So every single call is treated as a new call, which helps you to get out of server stickiness. So these two disadvantages, server stickiness and UX experience, were gone away. So user become little happy with no server stickiness, which means collaboration. You can achieve multiple users concurrently, 10,000 users from their mobile device. They can connect to your Fiori applications, because Fiori have come that gives a great user experience and a collaboration. Clear everyone what has happened? Then there is no need to persist the user session for long time. It just a call comes, a REST call comes, it does the processing, sends the response back. Call comes, does the processing, sends the response back. So this was again an advantage which you have got. So you get rid of collaboration problem, server stickiness, and UX problem. What about device switch? What about device switch? Can you do device switch? No, currently you cannot. Another disadvantage with this approach is you cannot share the data between multiple users because the session again is not persisted. The third disadvantage is the somehow what we have done the batch input. So whenever a OData call going to the backend, it goes as a batch call. Now if you guys want to understand what is $batch call in OData, please go to my website. I request you to please go to my website, learn an end-to-end creation of a Fiori application, starting from a database table inside of S4 HANA to an OData service to a Fiori application. I have covered that in these three videos, Anubhav's learning series. Here I started with creating database table with a good database design, which is extensible for future in S4 HANA system. Then I've created an OData service and explained about $batch. What is $batch call, which you see from the user interface. And then comes to the next level where I taught how to create a Fiori app on top of this OData service, a complete end-to-end pizza delivery application I had built. Transactional pizza delivery application where you can create pizza orders, store them, and keep an eye on the orders. Of all the pizzas with all the customers. So complete end-to-end transactional application in these three sequence of videos, guys. I request all of you, those who are working in ABAP and UI5, please watch these three videos. You will understand a lot. Okay, you will understand a lot. Okay, so we send always a $batch call, which means we don't call server multiple time, we don't disturb him multiple time. Now suppose you have a big screen where you're entering sales order data, we don't here and there keep calling server. We take all the data in one shot. On click of final save button, we transfer the state of the UI to this backend. And now in ABAP, the application logic runs. So your application logic resides in ABAP, which also does all the validation for you. So this is where your application logic runs. Okay, where all the validations are being taken care. And at the final save only, if there is something wrong, it sends the feedback back to the user, which means there is no intermediate feedback. Okay, there is no intermediate feedback. Clear? That's a disadvantage of these type of applications. Again, with the batch input Fiori applications, there is no intermediate feedback, which means while I'm entering plant or something, it doesn't tell me if I'm entered something wrong. Okay, so we also device switch is not possible because the state is not persisted. It's just a call, state creates, state gets ended once the response goes back. So no device switch is possible, no intermediate feedback is possible, no concept for draft. What is draft? A half completed work. I started at home in a mobile device creating a sales order. I switch off my device because of power outage or maybe battery got down. I drive to office. I open my laptop in office and I started editing my software, my sales order. Right. So for that, you need to persist the state of the UI, what you have done. That's what the new type of application is, a draft-based data manipulation DML-based application where you are able to achieve the transactional capabilities like insert, update, delete, together with intermediate state of the UI will also be stored so that you can do device switch, you can do collaboration, you will be able to also get feedbacks in the middle. Why? Because the client is so smart. This Fiori app is a smart Fiori app which keeps on calling the server on time to time basis. Like for example, if I enter a section of the UI where I have plant details or ship to party, sold to party details, or a line item details, if I leave that section, see, the Fiori app is smart. It sends a call to the server, automatically asynchronous call. Server checks the input which I've done on that section. It sends me the early feedback. So I am not mesmerized, I am not astonished on the final save. So intermediate feedbacks is also sent back. We will try to build this draft based application at the end. First we will build this application, and then we'll move on to the next one where I have a draft based application, which means now you have multiple users in a collaborative environment. Then you have your backend, and then you have your database. So inside of this database HANA, you are going to persist the state of the UI. Okay, so here you are going to persisted state. We call it as technically persisted state. Here you will persist the state of the UI, intermediate state of the UI inside of SAP HANA DB on time to time basis. Clear, everyone? And there is no more session in ABAP. So there is no session stickiness. No more session stickiness, which means you can switch the devices, you can work in a collaborative mode, you can have you can half complete your work, leave to office, and then do the things. So multiple users connected via multiple devices. So you have multiple client devices connected. So you have multiple client devices, thousands of mobile devices connected together with the server, and then you can work in a more collaborative way. This is our ultimate goal to be built. Now the main advantage, you still have ABAP, which means you have all the assets of ABAP, and one of the biggest asset of ABAP is business objects. And on top of business object, we have a framework in SAP called Business Object Processing Framework, which will give me all these transactional capabilities. So what are all the advantage of using BOPF? Logical unit of work. One transaction can be treated as one logical unit of work. It also takes care of your validation, validating the intermediate inputs and send the feedback to the user. You entered a wrong plant, you entered a wrong sales organization. All that validation, it will be also taken care by the BOPF framework. All the orchestration, business logic will also be taken care of by BOPF framework. Business logic, locking of data, exclusive locks, and unlocking the data, and finally nothing but the draft, so that you can work with the app in multiple device switches. All that is managed by BOPF, guys. Okay, so you will get rid of server stickiness, implement your business logic using BOPF, and then your CDS views. Why CDS views are used? Because of UI annotations. So tomorrow, what can happen? Your Fiori will go away. There's a new UI technology. Will you again write the logic to display table control in that new UI technology? So today, you remember in our example, we have created a table. You remember in our example, we created a table. So which column we have kept first? Document number we have kept first, right? We created on. So we always know the document number is going to be my first column, whether it is GUI app, WebDynPro app, BSP app, Fiori app, or tomorrow's, let's say, new UI technology. This is going to be structure of my table. So do you write this logic in user interface of putting your columns in this order? Does it make sense to write this logic of order of the columns and the columns which I need inside of my UI? Does it make sense? Because tomorrow UIs will change, and if you've written the code in UI, that's gone. You have to again rewrite the same code. So does it make sense to write code in UI, guys? Yes or no? No sense. So better you use UI annotation to write in CDS view. That's why I use CDS view for annotation. You might have also seen some tutorials on internet where people are creating manually the annotation file in Web IDE, annotation editor. That's not a good approach, because the day UI technology changed, those people have to then again rewrite their logic to implement the table, implement these search fields and all that again. But since we are writing in the right way in CDS view, this is going to remain forever. CDS view is your backbone. That's your data supplier. It's going to remain always. So even though UI technology changes tomorrow, you know what should be the right order in which the data should be displayed on the UI. Correct? So UI is subjected to change so often. New innovations are coming in UI, smart tables are coming, grid tables are coming, so it is subjected to change. So you don't end up keep writing more and more code every time UI technology change. That's a bad programming practice where you have high maintenance cost. So to reduce the total cost of ownership of the software, make sure that you write annotations in CDS view. Many tutorials on YouTube are telling you write annotations in the web IDE directly. Create your annotation XML. Don't go with those, because everything using CDS annotations you can do, and this is persisted using CDS. Core data service, rich data model. We've discussed it already in past classes. Today also again I will demonstrate the power of UI annotation in our example, which I have it here. Now in this there is another concept called metadata extension. So what you again do is you separate your data reading logic like select, association stuff from CDS and annotation into two different files. So all the UI annotation you're going to write it in metadata extension file, a separate file linked to the CDS view. So again here also complete separation of responsibilities you are doing. So you are leveraging your ABAP system for all the existing ABAP assets. You are doing a code to data paradigm with the help of your AMDP and CDS table function inside of SAP HANA database to get the performance like we did it using dashboard app in yesterday's class. And then you are also making sure that the draft is saved. The intermediate state of an application is saved time to time automatically by system, so that you can do a device switch when you want to do it, and you can work in a collaborative way. Multiple users can work together in a collaborative way with these type of applications. That's the ideal state of an application we want to build, guys. And for that, we have also the BOPF and CDS integration, which I will be discussing in a minute for your transactional logic. So BOPF layer will help you to do that, guys. Clear, everyone? The new dimension application with S4HANA, how will it work? This is also known as S4HANA ABAP Programming Paradigm. Everyone, any doubt? So OData is going to be your protocol because we don't want any server stickiness at all. This is going to be your choice of protocol. Clear, everyone? This architecture, this approach. So locks are managed, your logical unit of work is managed, draft is managed, everything is managed by this layer. Okay, I save this. Let's take our use case now. So I want to design a new database table. So let's take our use case here. Okay, so design a database table for flight meals where we can choose the meal type for each flight. Okay, this is what we want to design. We should be able to create, edit, delete, and see and query, I would say, current meal records from this table in Fiori user experience. Okay, this is the use case we have it. Let's get started with this use case. First, I'm going to design a custom Z table, and this custom Z table, I'm going to put some certain columns which I would need. So I'm going to put here the primary key as a technical GUID as the primary key. Again, if you want to understand this type of DB design, why we use primary key as a technical GUID, please look at my YouTube videos, my Anubhav Learning Series videos, which I was demonstrating to you, where I'm explaining why we use technical GUID as a primary key. Then we use carrier ID and connection ID, the meal type, the total number of seats, and the status of the meal. This is what I'm going to keep in my database table. So let's go ahead and design our database table into the system. So I come back to our S4 system and I go and create a new database table quickly. So just getting into it once again. Just say my user. And I just come here SC11, and then I'm just going to choose Z career, or say online Fiori trainings, OFT. That's the namespace which I will use, and I say flight meals. Okay, that's my database table. Let me put it in a notepad so that I don't forget the name later point of time. Very helpful for me, this notepad file always. And I just say create, just quickly create a new file. And this one I'll say flight meal, and it's an application table, maintenance right now allowing it, and just choose first as client dependent. All the tables in ABAP typically client dependent, and then say meal ID. That's my primary key pointing to a character 32-digit GUID, just a technical primary key. Now, why are we choosing this as a primary key? Please watch my Anubhav Learning Series video. The first video I've explained how can you build an extensible database design. Those who are even you are ABAP experienced, you will see I have put my expertise into it. What should be a good database design when you're creating a Fiori application for yourself? What should be a design which is extensible for future, which is future ready, which is ready for you. You don't have to go and change your primary keys all the time, which is very expensive inside of a system when there is a changing in requirement. How can you design such a database model which is extensible for future? Please look at Anubhav Learning Series videos. They are very helpful, completely kept over and over year of learning which I have had in industry, and I found the best practices of myself in industry. Those I have put it in those videos free of cost for entire community on YouTube, as well as people who are following my channel. Now coming to the next one, I will put care ID. Data element is s_care_ID, then connection ID, and s_connection_ID. Then the next field which I want to put is meal ID. So then s_meal number. And the next one I will put is seats. I say seats in the flight, and then say s_seat max data element, and then I say active, and this is going to be a flag type of data element. I want to put save this local object, activate it, and I just want some sample data to be put inside of this table, which I have created a small report program to push in some sample data inside of this database table for us to be able to then experience the data out of it. Okay, so I've created a sample report program which pumps in some data into this. I pre-built it, and this is the program which I created, and I getting into this program and show you what am I doing. So I'm just getting some data for connection ID and carrier ID from S-flight table, and I'm just going to flush the current data inside of this table, meal table, and I just replace this variable my current database table. Okay, and then that's it. We have now this ready. So I'm just inserting some records, guys, from a different database table. Okay, that's what I'm just doing, nothing else. Okay, this column is status column, and there is total seats column, not seats column. So that's just, I'm adapting my column names according to report. And very good, looks okay. So let's check this report and activate this report. I'm going to share both the report and the screenshot of this table with all of you into our training blog. Now I'm just going to execute it. Got executed, and let me just show you some data which is there inside of this table. So this is the table. Now imagine it could be your sales order table or purchase order table connected to line item table, all that you can have it actually inside of a system. Just taking an easy example, so it's easily able to, you are able to relate it. So now for every flight, you see, for a connection ID and connection number, for every unique meal we have records. Okay, so see, we have records for every meal, total number of seats, and of activation flag inside of system. So we have a couple of records. Now I want to design a transactional application to insert, update, delete records inside this database table. As simple as that. Okay, so let's go and do that. So I'm going to create first of all a CDS view on this, and make sure I'm also taking care of joins. So carrier ID field, if I just show you the joins which I'm going to take care just in the database level. The first table I'm going to join with SCAR table. So in SCAR table, we have information about companies, flight companies. So if I just take a care ID, maybe just open the data preview, and I say care ID AA. What does AA stands for? So I can come here to SCare table, put AA here, execute it. It stands for American Airlines. Then coming back, there's another table which is SPFLI table, and that SPFLI table is going to store the information about the flights going from one destination to another destination. So that is something which is read based on a combination of flight from and flight to. But to calculate the number of seats, I will go with S flight table, not the SPFLI table. So S flight table, if you go inside and you put your flight ID, American Airlines 0017, it will tell you where is this flight operating from and what dates it is operating on. So I say execute, and you see this flight is operating with this capacity. Okay, this is the booking total by far. All these values are being displayed over here in this with the different dates on which the flight is available. That's my S flight table. I'm going to join S flight table with the with the meals table which I have. And then finally we have another table which stores the meal information. So that's in-flight meal information is stored in a database table. Let me just search for that. So I forgot the name, so I'm just searching S star meal F4, and I think it's S meal, in-flight meal. And now if you come back, you see there is a meal number 7. Okay, let me take this 7, execute it. And for American Airlines 0007, what does it mean? So American Airlines 0007, and it means Caprico. Okay, Carpaccio is the dish name in flight meal. So these three tables are actually going to participate in my anyone who will tell me in CDS view, if you want to connect multiple table, which concept I taught you, in CDS. If you want to connect multiple table, which concept I taught you? Anybody who will tell me which concept I taught you to connect multiple tables? Perfect answer, all of you. It's association. We're going to do an association with these three tables with the meal table in my CDS model. So let's go back, and I'm just going to go back to the CDS, and let's create our CDS. So right click, new data definition, zip online Fiori training, and I say flight meal. Let me just keep it meal app. Okay, I'm just going to use it as a consumption view. Finally, this will be used by my Fiori app, and I just keep a small name so that looks okay. And I say flight meal application consumption view S4 HANA, and I say next, and I just define a view with association, finish. I'm just going to use my database table, which is this gentleman here. I'm just going to also put it in my notepad. Yeah, that's already there. And just come here, and I say select from my this flight meal table association. First association is with the carrier ID, SCAR table, and I'll say airline, and then I'll say insert all the elements, control space, insert all elements of my flight meal table, and my meal ID is the key field. And I assume, guys, all of you remember the syntax which I taught you by far. So dollar projection, and this carrier ID is going to be compared with the airline carrier ID. Okay, that's my first search criteria, first association. The next association of 1 to my S flight table as flight info on, and then I have two conditions here for joining. First is carrier ID dollar projection dot care ID equals to flight info dot care ID and dollar projection dot con ID flight info association dot connection ID. And then comes is my next association with the meal table to the meal table, and the meal table is S meal table. So let's go and define this association with S meal table as meals on my join condition projection dot meal meals dot meal number. Clear? So that's the join condition between or association between these different ones. Now meal ID, carrier ID, connection ID, meal, total seats and status 5 fields, I have it, and I'm going to expose my association out of here. All the 3 associations, the flight info and my meals. Clear guys? This is exposed association here for my data. Let's also give our DD view name on the top. Save this and just quickly activate the CDS. Let's have a quick look at the output of the CDS. So I'm just going to execute it and you see it's displaying me. Now anyone, I want to know this particular carrier ID is pointing to which company. So what is DL stands for? What do I do? Anyone? I taught you this. What do I do to now know what is this DL stands for? Anyone? What do we do to know what is this DL stands for? Anyone who will tell me? What do I do for this DL stands for? Right click, follow association and just check the carrier association, airline. Double click and voila, it stands for Delta Airlines. That's the power of association in CDS. Clear? What do I want to know? What are all the different dates on which this AZ 790 flights is there? Anyone? What do I do on what dates this AZ 790 flights is there? On what are all the different dates this AZ 790 flight is there? How do I know? Anyone? How do I know on what dates AZ 790 flights are there? Right click, follow the flight association. Perfect answer, Ranjan. So let's go and check for flight info. And you see, these are all the dates on which this flight is there. Wow. Superb. Come back. Finally, the last one, the meal. I want to know what is this 8 stands for. Right click. Again, follow association with meals. And now you know, oops. Yes, it's showing me for all the flights, all the meals. What FL? It stands for FL. I don't know what FL is, but yes, it's showing you for all the carrier IDs, all the meals. Clear, guys? So that's your join condition. You can also put here carrier ID as part of join as an additional join. So I can say dollar projection dot carrier ID meals carrier ID also part of join. So what as a result you will see, you will not see all the meals for all flights. Only for the one which you selected, we will see the value F8. Right click wherever you like. You can right click on any line, right click, follow, and go to meals. You will see only one record now. So it stands for FL. Okay, so that's how your associations are now in action. Okay, any limitation on number of association can be used? I'm not sure. I think there is a limitation about 31. I'm not sure. Okay, but it's actually ample enough to define the major association in a typical ERP based app. That's enough. Okay, so now the real magic starts. The first thing which I need to now do is define annotations for my Fiori app. Or first of all, we'll create OData service. Who will tell me how to create an OData service out of this CDS view? Anyone? Who will tell me how do I create CDS view, OData service out of my CDS view? Yesterday's class, we have seen that, in fact, in many of them. OData publish, perfect answer. So put OData publish equals to true. I save this and I just activate it and it's getting activated. Yes, what got activated? Copy this, go to your system /main transaction, create the service, put here underscore CDS. This is what we learned in previous chapters. Add selected service, local object, click on OK, and you would see in a minute your OData service will be ready. Let's come back. You can see it in the filter underscore CDS. That's my service. Click on call browser. Remember, system launches the OData service for you. Perfect. And now you can just go and fire and query on this entity set with the data format as JSON. You would see all the data being exposed out. Perfect. In minutes, we can create a data service. Trainers on YouTube are taking one hour session to explain this by cheating people. Be aware of such trainers. They are just teaching basics. They're just teaching basics. They are nowhere close to real time. Okay. Imagine somebody teach this one. What is there in this? Just one annotation. What is in there? What is in there to learn something special? Nothing. Okay. So let's come back. And what I'm going to do now, as I was telling you, we are going to separate the annotations which we are putting. So there is a concept called CDS Metadata Extensions, which was introduced with 7.51, in which you separate out the UI annotations of your CDS into a different file, rather than keeping it in the same file, which is kind of coupling your CDS logic with the UI logic, which is not recommended. Typically, we always try to modularize things, separate the UI logic and processing logic and orchestration logic and the LUW logic, separate. So CDS is purely for data modeling, association, relationships, and then an extension will be created to the CDS to be able to define the UI annotation. Another advantage of extension is I can deliver as SAP one extension file to you. You can inherit from that extension file and you can write your own extensions for UI extensibility purpose. For example, SAP give you one app and you want to, without too much of technicality or waiting for next release, you can go and extend that extension file with your scope, or your partner company can do it by extending it and adding that new field to the UI using UI annotation. And then you can again extend your partner implementation extensions, and then you can implement your own UI changes. So that's a great concept, extensibility concept, which comes into picture with metadata extension concept in CDS. We will see that in a minute. So let's go ahead and do that for our list report. So if you remember in the last session when I was teaching you the analytical and the list report application, we saw that we have created all the UI annotations inside of my CDS. You see, all this we have created here inside of the CDS. So that's the reason now I'm going to separate these UI annotation to a metadata extension. How do we do that? Let's come here, put something called @ CDS metadata extension, metadata allow extension to true. This is first annotation you have to put. Save this, activate it first of all, and now watch carefully. You got to create a CDS metadata extension file for your CDS view. Copy this name, go on the top, right click on code data service, new, and that's the third option, guys, which we have not yet covered. So we covered this today, this, and now we are here, metadata extensions. So select that and choose here and just give some name. So it's a metadata extension, MDE. So all the UI annotations, so UI related code will be in extension. Okay, and now say next, and I can say annotate view, finish. This is the best and cutting edge technology, guys. This is the latest and greatest in the market, these concepts. Nowhere on YouTube or any channel you will find these concepts. Only exclusively available with Anubhav. Now come here, control space, and now you see. So I am not SAP. I am a partner company working, let's say, for any company. And SAP delivered me their extension under a namespace called Core. S4HANA Core. And what I'm doing is I don't want to use SAP delivered UI user interface. I want to build my own interface. So I can go and develop it under partner namespace. So that's a partner metadata extension which take priority over the core. So there is always a list of priority. When system goes and check the extension to pick up the annotation file, system first checks, is there any customer implementation? If yes, that takes the priority. If not, then it goes to partner implementation. If not, then it goes to core implementation. This is how system will prioritize while creating annotation, creating your user interface based on annotation. It picks up the right thing from the current layer. And now you put annotate your CDS view name, and then you just control space and say insert all elements. And now we will give annotations. So all the files which we don't need, we can remove them. Sorry, all the properties which we don't need, we remove them. And rest of the properties, I would just go ahead and annotate them. So the first property I don't want to display to the user. So I say @UI dot hidden equals to true. I don't want to display technical ID to the user. The second one, I want to display care ID as a selection field also. So I say @ of UI annotation colon curly braces, and now inside I'll say the first thing comes is my selection field, and I want to create the selection field at position number 10. This should be my first field. Okay, then put comma, and I want to also say line item. I want this to be also in the table. So line item annotation with position 10, and then finally I will also put annotation for creating in the next screen. So remember guys, yesterday we did that. We had put our field on the next subsequent screen in a smart list report. Which annotation did we use? Anyone? Can you tell me which annotation did we use yesterday to put our selected record data on a next detail screen? Who will tell me? Who remember yesterday's class? No one remembers? Which annotation did we use? No one remembers? Which annotation did we use in yesterday's class? Which means nobody practiced. Please practice, guys. Please practice. It was identification annotation. Yes, Tara is right. Position is 10. Okay. Now I want to also define the label for my field. Okay. I can define the label for my field. So what this care ID should be displayed as on the UI. So I can say object UI dot label UI dot. You can also group the fields together in a group. All that is possible. So there's an annotation which we use to also define the label for our input fields. So let me just check that UI dot data point. No, not data point. UI dot identification, I guess. Yes. Yeah. UI dot, yes, identification dot label. Okay. So you can put this whole thing inside also. Here also you can put it. So it comes with the identification property only. So let's put here comma, and I say curly braces identification. Okay, 1 second. Identification label, and I'll say this is my airline company. Clear, everyone? This is how we annotate the label also. So let's put them in the system. So I'll just put the connection ID, meal, total seats, and then status. All fields I'm putting. Let me just change their position. This to 20. Position number 2 should be my connection ID. Position, and the label for this I want to keep it as connection number. This should be position number 30. Third position, it should be this, my connection ID. Sorry, my meal. And I don't want to create a field for this user input field. I don't want. So I remove that annotation, and I just put this as a meal number. And then also I don't want a selection field for this guy and this guy. And then this one, I want to put the label as seats. And this one I want to put the label as status. Clear, everyone? And let's change the numbers quickly for the position of these fields in the table and on the next screen. Clear, everyone? How we separated the user interface annotations to a different file. Is that clear to everyone? How did we separated this out? So let's activate this. And now we are ready. So those who wanted to test the annotation, I have a news for you. You can go back, check your auditor service. This is your auditor service, which you have it for flight meal. Just go to the dollar metadata of the auditor service. Press enter. Sorry. Dollar metadata. And now you see on the top, there is a URI references. Okay. There is this URL. This is your annotation URL. Sometimes, if you're working in ABAP on HANA, a UI developer may come to you and say, give me the annotation file from CDS. Give me that. I want to copy that and create my UI. Don't tell it to anybody. Give me your annotation file from CDS. I will make a copy of it and I will create my UI. This is what UI developers will do. Sometimes they will come and ask you. Okay, so don't panic. Just go to metadata, take this URL, copy this URL, come here, put this URL in another window, and you see it got downloaded. Double click on this, open it with maybe Internet Explorer or a notepad. I'll open it with Internet Explorer, and this is your annotation file, which you can give it to your UI developer. Clear, everyone? This is the annotation file, which typically UI developer, sometimes they cheat. So they try to create this annotation file inside Web IDE directly, which is incorrect. Why? I told you today. Why we should not create annotations. You will find a lot of tutorials, misleading tutorials. It's a good practice, no problem, but you should try to put annotation in CDS, because tomorrow if your user interface will change, Fiori will go away, and let's say another technology comes in, then you are bound to again recode the whole thing. You're bound to redesign your table again. But if you keep it with CDS, no problem. Your UI may change 100 times, another technology may come, but table is going to be a table, the column are going to be column, the fields are going to be field, right? So earlier, the same screen was there in SAP GUI. Now same screen is there in WebDim Pro. Now same is in BSP, and now it is in Fiori. Same look and feel they want across. This is what they do. Don't you hear this in projects? मुझे सेम स्क्रीन दिखना चाहिए, सैप गुई में जो था वही चाहिए मेरे को, वैसा का वैसा लाके दो, फ्योरी में लाके दो, चाहे कैसे भी लाके दो, मुझे नहीं पता फ्योरी क्या है, मुझे वैसा ही चाहिए. So would you recode the whole UI again in every release with every new UI technology? Does it make sense? Of course not. Of course not. So try to put your annotations at CDS level. This is why I say learn the standards, learn the good practices. Don't follow blindly tutorials on internet, which sometimes may be obsolete, sometimes may not be useful, sometimes may mislead you to the wrong direction where there is high effort of maintenance. And that's why this training of S4HANA Technical is with Anubhav. I share best in class experience which I had by far in my architecture career, with different working with different teams, working with different clients, working with different people. All companies what you see today, they are all my clients. They all come to me for architecture sessions. The best practices which should be there in industry, they all come to me. They come and ask me, Anubhav sir, बताइए कैसे डिजाइन करें, कल को ऐप चेंज हो गया, यूजर इंटरफेस चेंज हो गया, क्या करेंगे अनुभव सर, बताइए कैसे करें अनुभव सर, कैसे करेंगे, हम कर तो लेंगे सर, आउटपुट तो आ जाता है, लेकिन कैसे करें, हाउ टू एक्सटेंड, बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है सर, रोज चेंज करना पड़ता है, और डेवलपर मानता नहीं है सर, रोज रिक्वायरमेंट चेंज हो जाता है, रोज चीजें चेंज करनी पड़ती है, डेवलपर मानता नहीं है, सुनता नहीं है. सो टेल अस द बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस अनुभव सर. दिस इज व्हाट आई टेल देम. Put your annotations not in local annotation file, put them in CDS, and especially with metadata extensions like we did it today, completely separated out the logic of UI today in a different metadata extension file, guys. Clear, everyone? Sometimes your developer is not experienced with CDS. Sometimes there may be also a need for manual creation of annotation file. That's also fine. That's also fine. In that case, you can help them. Whatever you can provide, you can give them this annotation file. They can further extend it based on the need. Clear, everyone? Let's go back. Now I want to give also a search field. So let's run the Fiori app now. So extension is ready, OData is ready, CDS is ready, annotations are ready. What we are waiting for? Create our Fiori app for meals application. So I'm just going to go back and oops, it's restarting. That's okay. and just come back here. I'm just going to create a new Fiori application like we did yesterday in my web IDE. So I say new project from template. I am not at all experienced in Fiori. I am an ABAPer. If you take my blood sample and give it to laboratory, you will find ABAP tissues. You won't find UI5 tissues. You will find ABAP tissues high in demand. Okay, I'm an ABAPer. I don't know JavaScript. I can create still the Fiori app in my company because I know annotations and CDS views. So I come back here to the category, choose Fiori elements, create a list report, say next, and whole of my UI will be ready for me. Project name, I say Z online Fiori trainings, my namespace of the company, underscore my team name, whatsoever it is, and I say meal app. Okay, I say flight. Okay, in-flight meals application, namespace is OFT, description, choose your meal, and say next. And I'm just going to search for my S4 HANA system. There you go, loads all the services. Let's take the service name where it is. Here it is. This is my service name. I take it, paste it over here, select it. Let me put it in the notepad also, just to remember. And I say next. And now it's loading annotation file, guys. You remember the call which I had showed you manually? It's actually make that call from web ID to load annotation file. It loaded, select it. Never ever code annotation in directly in web ID. You are burning your hands if you're doing so. If you're burning, you're making it not scalable. You're making it rigid to bind to UI, to stick together. You're actually pushing the code inside the UI, which is bad. Tomorrow your UI technology change, you have to again rewrite the whole code. But if you put it with CDS, you are isolated from change. It is scalable. It is scalable to new UI technology, less effort, less maintenance. It's your choice what you want to do. You want high maintenance or you want less maintenance. You want right architecture, you want bad architecture. You want a standard practices or you want bad practices. It's your choice. You have to decide it. You have to guide your team. You are the one who is the decision maker. A developer is the decision maker here. And if you take wrong architectural decisions, you are going to see the consequences of those wrong decisions. People who are experienced than you, people who have the right skills, they will point out on your work if you take wrong decisions. But if you take right decisions, if somebody come and try to point you out, you can tell them what is the best practice. You can showcase them the right path. You can showcase your knowledge which you have gained in the training. Let's go into the next and say finish it. We are good. We are done. It's created over here. ZOFT meal application. We are ready to shoot this up. You can see annotation is created here. Annotation file is also loaded. Now, though it's there, but what will happen? System will always fetch the annotation from server at runtime. So if you change an annotation, something in annotation file in CDS metadata extension, it will be taking up the latest changes from server. So you don't have to worry about this local annotation file. However, you can have a quick look at this annotation file, and here you have also the CDS annotation modeler where you can do local changes to your annotation file. Okay, so you can make local changes to your annotations using this. This is what typically some UI developers are using to be able to define their user interface using local annotation file. But we don't want to get into this game of local annotations. Not a good practice. I close this and I come here and say execute and just run it with my Fiori sandbox. And there you go. Shows me a nice little cute tile for my Fiori app. Just execute it. Ask me the credentials for my S4 HANA system. Okay. And we are ready to see, you see, airline and connection number, 2 input fields. If you want to compare it, you can go back to CDS Metadata Extension. You see selection field. First selection field is care ID. Second selection field is con ID and full stop. There is no more selection field. So it's very much clear now. You guys know that there are only 2 selection fields you have. Clear? Next, how many table columns we have according to annotation? How many table columns we have according to annotations? Who will tell me how many table columns we have according to annotation? Anyone who will tell me how many table columns we have according to annotations? 5 columns. You see airline 1, connection number 2, in-flight field number 3, maximum capacity 4, indicators 5 columns. Let's shoot on go, and voila, it loaded all the data from my CDS. Without JavaScript coding, as an ABAPer, I'm ready to build an application. Currently, it's a display-like application. Maybe if I choose an item, and now you see on next screen, airline company, I had put the label. So you can see this airline company, which label I've given. It's available in the identification region over here. Connection number, meal number, seats, and status is available. So is this a transactional application currently? Anyone? Do you think it is a transactional application? No, it's just a DQL, data query language, which is just displaying you some data. The beauty also is you get some nice features like adapt filter. You can add more filter criteria like indicator, flight meal number, and all that. You can adapt your UI quite easily. It's an extension capability. Now, I wanted to also show you the search help capability. So right now, if I do an F4 on airline, you see I don't get the airline code search. Okay, it is not capable of searching the airline code at the moment. I can of course give a value which I should know, I should remember, and then it searches that. That's completely fine, but I don't get the list of available airlines in the system. Now, can anybody tell me, if you are in a typical world and you want to, in this case, want to read the information of airline codes only, what is that you would probably use? What is that special thing which we created in this CDS to able to read the airline informations from something called a master data? Anybody? Which concept do you use to be able to read this master data information of airline codes? No, not domain values. Incorrect answer. No, table function note, not required to go so much of deep. You have simply the association, guys. You see airline association, it's done with the SKR table. I showed you when I started this, taking an airline code, putting in SKR table and showed you the output, right? Isn't it? So this association will help you to do that. And that will also supply the value to your F4 help. How do you do that? Come to your CDS view. Don't put these annotations now in metadata extension. These are CDS annotations, not the UI annotations. So you have to do that over here. So put here, the first thing which you need to put is search, default search element. If you want, you can put it. Otherwise, just come to the care ID. And in this care ID, put object model. And then put here dot foreign key, association, and your association name control space, and say this is associated with the airline code. Clear, everyone? Is this part clear, everyone? Okay, let's save this. Let's activate. So we have put the association name above the field name, which is going to fetch the data for airline codes. Now come back to UI, refresh the UI. That's the beauty again with annotations, guys. You have to, again, every time don't have to code this in every new UI technology. You put it at CDS level and now do an F4 on airline code. And voila, you see here the list of airline codes. I just do go and voila, see, it loaded all the airline codes. That's the beauty of association. Hope you are all able to understand the power of association today. Majority of the trainers will only teach you association concept. They won't teach you the usage, where it is consumed. As I told you, remember in my first session of CDS view, that CDS view, the annotation power is really with respect to consumption. Where are you consuming it? You remember this slide where I draw this diagram where CDS view is being used by these consumers. For them, it makes sense for annotations. Annotations are not for fun. They are used for serious business, for consumption tool. And one of the major consumption tool is Fiori here. Hope you are able to relate the usage of annotations today in the real Fiori app, how it is impacting your Fiori application. Clear, everyone? The usage of annotations with this example. Okay, let's come back. Now choose AA, say okay. And then, of course, as usual, it does the filtering for me. See, American airline flights have been filtered. Superb. Similarly, you can go and put it for connection number. That's very, very simple. And you can also put for in-flight meal as well. So maybe just want to put it for connection ID. object model, foreign key, association. I want to associate this with the flight info. And then the next one, which I want to do it with the meal, just associate it with the meals. Activate it. And done. Let's come back to the Fiori app. That's the beauty, guys. Putting association at CDS level. Don't have to touch the UI code. Even somebody delete your app with your jealousy, you can go and recreate in 5 minutes. Doesn't work. He will be wondering, अरे यार delete कर दिया इतना बढ़िया ऐप था लेकिन अभी भी चल रहा है कैसे चल रहा है? Because all is there, your logic inside of your annotation in your CDS. And I'll just do it connection number. Go. And you see all the connection numbers have been loaded accordingly. Clear, guys? That's the beauty of annotations and association inside of CDS. Now I can also go to settings and adapt my sorting. I can do sorting, filtering, grouping. Imagine all of that you have to write using JavaScript coding. It will be hell for you. It is a big effort for you to implement all this sorting, searching, grouping, all this functionality using core JavaScript and OData services, which many of you by far doing in your company for every single operation, whether it is top, dollar, skip paging, or sorting, searching, filtering, grouping. You are all writing core ABAP code in your DPC extension class today. You are not using right concept of CDS. Because of that, you have to write all these functionality yourself inside of an ABAP code in DPC extension class because you are not using, and still your UI doesn't look that great because it doesn't follow standards. Maybe I just wanted to quickly show you. I want to group it based on airline. I say okay, and I say go. Watch carefully. How does it look? See, it grouped the data. How beautiful my app looks, guys. These are all inbuilt feature. These are all inbuilt feature. I can apply default filtering. I can do grouping. I can do sorting. I want to do sorting based on, let's say, connection number or based on capacity of the flight or connection number. I can say, okay. See, it's sorted based on connection number. 17, 64, 55. Yeah, sorted. First it did grouping, then it did sorting. You can also save this whole thing as a variant inside of system. This thing you can't implement using your core coding, guys. You got to, you will get crazy, yeah. This all functionality comes for free. Comes for free with the Smart Filter app. You can save this variant with the name Anubhav online Fiori trainings.com. Set as a default, and next time when I come back, I refresh the app, I can restore the state of UI with this variant. See, it is user specific. The variant concept which you have in core ABAP is also there in Fiori here for you. This is a personalized variant which I have it. I can switch to standard. How does it look? I can switch to my personalized variant stored in the system. Absolutely free functionality for all of you. No JavaScript coding required. No ABAP coding required. If you build your view correctly with your UI annotation, you can do magic, guys. And that's what is covered in my current S4HANA technical training with the ABAP on HANA. I've taught you all those concepts in those 40 hours, which is required for you to learn to reach to this level. Okay. And now let's go and implement the capability for DML operations. I want to now make it transactional app. Okay. How can we create transactional app? Okay. Yes, there's a question here. So we don't need to create OData service in SEGW. Not at all. Not at all. Use your annotations. What if sometimes you want to combine multiple CDS view in a single OData service? That is what I will teach you in the next session. Okay. That is what I'll teach you in the next session. So how to combine multiple into one. So Chandra is having a question. Is this your last class? No, we have one more class where we'll talk about integrated data access using ALV. And we'll also talk about text search capability of SAP HANA DB, fuzzy search, fault tolerant search, all that we will do it in the next class. Okay, let's move on. No problem, Chandra, you can go. Now, what I'll do is I will go ahead and going to implement the transactional capability. What do you think? What's the effort of implementing transactional capability in a Fiori application with the backend inside a real transactional application which you typically build inside the system? What is the effort for that? Anyone? What do you think is a typical effort for that? How many percent days you would need to implement a transactional app to do both front end and back end together? Maybe, maybe 5 PDs or maybe 10 PDs, you would say. I would say the effort is 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes, guys. An effort of 5 minutes can bring you a transactional app looking like a standard one. Let's go ahead and do that. Thanks to association of CDS view. So that's the BOPF integration, leveraging the existing assets of SAP system, which does all of this for you. The BOPF CDS integration comes absolutely for free for you. Let's come back. I'm going to put that over here. So there's an annotation for that as well. So what you're going to do is you will say at the rate of object model, and then you can just come here and put the first thing is model category, and I'll say business object modeling, and then I will say it's a composite root. So what business object processing framework or a business object is typically nothing but it is uh, it is a basis for an enterprise application. Each business object represents a type of uniquely identifiable business entity. Okay, and these business entities are represented as nodes in a business object processing framework. Okay, so you will have all these nodes connected with each other in a hierarchy. For example, sales order header is a node which is called root node. Inside of sales order header, you can have child node as a as items. So this is how in a tree structure, in a tree structure, you can model your entities, but you don't need to learn BOPF, guys, to be able to do transactional capabilities. Yes, little bit of BOPF will require for implementing extra capability. Let's say you want to do a custom action, you want to do some custom calculation. For that, you need little bit of ABAP programming. Not really need to necessarily learn complete BOPF. Okay, system will automatically create a BOPF object for you, business object for you at runtime with these annotations. I will show you now. So next I will say I want a composite root. So in this case, this particular single table, so I'm going to say this is going to be my composite root. Everything will be inside of this root in BOPF. Okay, that is what I will be doing. And then what next I will be having is I will go ahead and put my next annotation for transactional capability. So I'll say transactional processing enabled is true. I should be able to enable transactional processing. And inside of this, what all I want to enable? Do I want user to be able to create new data? So I say create enable. Yes, enable the create. No problem. Do you want to enable the update? Yes, update enabled. Do you want to enable the delete? Yes, delete enable. So I have enabled all the transactional capabilities, create, update, and delete, guys, using my business BOPF annotation. Let's save this and activate my table. Sorry, activate my CDS. We are done. We are done, guys. Fiori app is ready with transactional capability. Amazing, isn't it? That's called BOPF integration with CDS, guys. Your transactional application is ready. It will automatically create a BOPF BO for you, which has all the logical unit of work, locking capability of your data based on its primary key. It has all the insert, update, delete functionality for you ready to consume without writing single ABAP code. See the speed of development in one session of 2 hours. In fact, first hour we took it on DCL concept, and in this concept now, in just 1 hour, we are able to create a complete transactional Fiori app without writing an ABAP code at all. And this is fully functional, fully standard, fully extensible even for a new UI technology. Okay, so it's getting activated. Let's see. It doesn't take usually this much time. So hopefully let it first get activated. In the meantime, I'll quickly take questions. So first question is from Vinita. To integrate the service, is object model used? To integrate the service? No. For OData service, we use OData publish annotation. We didn't use any object model for service. To integrate it with BOPF, we have to use this object model. And here we have to put category as business object. For that purpose, we use it. Okay. It was looking that it will take long time, but it just took 5 minutes. Yes, it just took 5 minutes, Ranjan. That's what it is. Is this creating a data model for CDS view for consumption? No. It will create a business object for us, guys. Okay. System will create a business object for us. It won't create a data model. Basically, inside business object, you would see actually it's a BOPF business object which it creates, inside which you will have all the other things. Now, let's say it ran into some error. Let me check what's the error is. So I just focus on this error. View has generated objects, BO, sync, neither draft. Okay, I have forgot to tell which is my table in which the data should be stored. So that also have to specify. So there's another annotation which we have to put to define which is the database table in which the data should be stored. So there is an annotation called write active persistence, and I have to give here the database table name in which the data should be stored. So I will put my database table name, which I have it here, and just put it, save it, because BOPF needs to know which table it has to store, which table it has to lock, which table it has to read data from, update data into, or all that BOPF needs to know, right? That's the reason we have to give our DB table name. Let's activate it once again, and you would see now magic happening on your screen. It will create a business object inside of business object processing framework with complete DML functionality. Insert, update, delete, everything is ready. Now you see no activation error, and you see this nice light tiny gray color icon. All of you, line number 11, you can see I just hover on this and you see my business object here. Click on it, voila, it has created a business object inside BOPF for me, guys. You see the root node has been created. Those who know BOPF, even you don't know BOPF, you don't need to worry about it. What is it doing? You don't care. It does all your transactional locking, delocking, logical unit of work, commit work, rollback, insert, update, delete, everything. It does it for you absolutely free. Absolutely free, guys. There you go. I can now go to the remote node, and you also see nice outline view in Eclipse, which showcase you how does the BO is structured. So you have your, actually the CDS view name will be the name of the BO with which it creates, and you see your persistent structure, your combined structure. Sometimes you have a deep nesting of nodes. For example, you have header, and inside of that you have line item. So system would also create automatically the data types for that accordingly. Since I have enabled create, update, and delete, you see all three checkboxes inside of this business object is also available. Okay, it has created all the necessary structures, data types for me. It has also created data access class. Okay, and it has actually done everything for me. And I'm not going here inside of a BOPF framework to teach you BOPF actually, but yes, you can imagine that it has all the DML functionality free of cost for you, created for you. Now, nothing else. Testing. Let's go back. Testing करेंगे. चलो आ जाओ. Let's refresh the app. Watch carefully, guys. Do you see any create button here? Do you see any create button at the moment? No. If I go inside, do you see an edit button here? Do you see an edit button or a delete button here at the moment? No. Now let me just do refresh. Let me just do refresh. All magic happens here. Do you see the delete and create button now appearing at front of your screen, absolutely free without writing much of a BAP code? You have enabled the DML functionality inside of your Fiori application. Such a great concept. Zero coding. Full extensibility support thanks to the annotations of CDS view. Today, guys, this is the content I'm sharing it with you. Nowhere else you will find it so easily. Complete information, BOPF CDS integration. Many times, many of my students have asked me. So this is here. I've created this YouTube video exclusively for all my audience and my subscribers on YouTube. Completely, I'm committed to my knowledge. I'm committed to you towards those who are following continuously my videos. I am there for you guys. I will always keep bringing you the best in class content to solve your problems. Whatever your problem is, feel free to write it to me. Send me your email, send me your feedback. Keep posting comments on this YouTube video. If you're liking this YouTube video, feel free to share it, like it, comment it. it always inspires me to do more and more and bring more content to you guys. Okay, let's test this up. So you can just say plus button. I want to create a new one, so I can do an F4. And you see it gets me the nice F4 also because I have an association. So I want to create an American Airlines. I can choose a connection number, or I can give something number random 9999, and then I'd say meal number. I can just do an F4, and you can see all the available meals will be displayed. You see these are all the values which are available. I want to create 20, and I can say available seats. So this is something I want to determine at runtime. I want to do some little bit of calculation inside of my business object processing framework to determine the number of seats available in American airline connection number flight. So that's something which I will teach you in the next class. Right now, let me hard code this value to, let's say, 380. And I say save. Voila. I save it, and voila, you see the record has been created, guys. 9999 American Airlines, 20 is the meal number, 380 is the number of seats, no is the status. This is what has been created over here, absolutely free, without writing any single ABAP line of code. That's the BOPF framework does it for you guys. Let's go to the system and check out our database table. Do we have the record created? Is I'm teaching? Is I'm teaching, or is am I teaching, or is am I cheating? Okay, so let's go ahead and check that up in the system. You can trust me at least for that. So let's go back inside of our SE11, and I just enter my table name, ZID Online Fiori Trainings Flight Meal, and just come inside, go into it, put the flight number 9999. That's only one record you would be having. And there you go. Your record has been created here, guys. Clear, everyone? How we created the record inside our database table. Now, if you want to edit a record, that's also fairly simple. You want to delete a record, fairly simple. Just click on the record, click on delete button, and say delete. Yes, delete it for me, please. The record gets deleted. Complete DML functionality with BOPF. You want to change a record, just go inside. I want to change my meal preference for this particular flight. I can go inside this record. I can go for edit. Instead of 8, I want to do an F4. That's your association brings you an F4 help. And I say, I want to change it to, let's say, 29. Okay, and I save this. And you can see it's been updated 29. You can go back and you would also see it got updated here to 29, the meal type. So that's a complete transactional support using business object processing framework right at your doorstep using CDS and BOPF concept. Any questions, anybody? No questions? So feel free to write me your comments. You all know my email ID. It's anubhav.abap@gmail.com. Feel free to write me back your feedback if you want to know more about it. And as I promised all of you that I'm going to post also a YouTube video where I will show you navigation from our analytical app which we created in yesterday's class. So the one which we created a dashboard here to display all the information for posting documents. This is the dashboard which we had created in yesterday's class using, again, annotations inside of CDS. So I will show you navigating from this dashboard application, this chart application, or this card, to our list application. This is what I will be posting a YouTube video soon. Thanks, Abhijit, for writing the feedback. I will take your feedback and I will be posting a YouTube video for navigating to it. I will deploy both of these apps inside of S4 HANA Launchpad, and end-to-end Launchpad tile creation, and then navigation between both of them. I will demonstrate it to you in the live system of 1610 S4 HANA OP. Great. Hope you enjoyed today's class, guys. So do you have any recordings on BOPF? Currently not. I don't teach BOPF. And I'm not an expert too in BOPF, but yes, I can become an expert if you ask me to do so. But actually don't need it, guys. You can just leverage it. And I will, in the next session, show you some more capability which you can do extra. Like I want to implement a custom action, a button. When you click on the button, something should happen. Or for example, I want to calculate the total number of seats inside of a flight easily. So that also I want. And something, of course, which I wanted to also demonstrate today, but due to lack of time, not able to do, like capabilities of draft. What if you want to create a new flight meal option? Okay, I want to create a new record. Okay, I want to create a new record, and I don't want. I forgot to save it. So it should save it as an intermediate state in the system, as a draft application, as a draft inside of system, guys. And then later on, I can log in with another device or completely new browser session. Okay, and then it should open it up automatically, my last edited draft. And then it should also manage the collaboration, like let's say this user is currently editing this record, all that information it should do it for me, all the orchestration. I don't need to write logic for that. So that collaboration and the draft application, all that we'll see in our next unit, which is in the next class. And I'll also try to complete ELV with IDA and the full search text capability with HANA on ABAP on HANA. So more information about my ABAP on HANA training, UI5 Fiori training, is available on my website, onlinefiorytrainings.com. Lot of videos absolutely free for all of you available here. Recently also started SAP native HANA application development. Please subscribe if you want to go into the native HANA application development. Subscribe to this course. You would love this, how we built an application completely on HANA stack, not at all without having any ABAP layer. Okay, maybe important for those who are want to build their own company, want to build their own software completely on HANA stack without any ABAP stack in the middle. Okay, so with that, it's a wrap on today's class. Please feel free to share your comments on this YouTube video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. With that, Anubhav signing out. Thank you so much. Have a nice day and goodbye.